Hi, my name is Alex Newborn, and this is now November of 2012. I've been getting a lot of people ask me that haven't seen the photos that I've been posting online whether or not I ever made a Proton Pack. The answer is yes, I did, but I haven't posted anything to YouTube in a while because my old computer that my video camera was compatible with has died. I'm on a webcam right now on my wife's laptop. I can take still photos, I can record my voice and put it to a photo montage. I just can't actually show you any of the video that I've been shooting on that old video camera. Sorry. So this is the next best thing, and here we go. Hope you enjoy. In May of 2012, I bought my fiberglass shell. And this came from Vinny, the same guy that had sold me my Ecto goggle frames the year before. I kind of soul searched about what shell I wanted, and then my friend Julian really recommended this shell. He said Vinny had great customer service after the fact, after the purchase. He was there to answer any questions for you. So these were some of the first few parts that I amassed. I had the Alice frame from eBay. I had some tubing from GB Fan Shop and some other trim like the ladder and the resistors. I had a too large crank knob from Jack Dowd from eBay. And then I also had, you can barely see it in this picture, an aluminum heat sink that I purchased. Now my original goal was to build this from as many of the authentic materials as possible. Fiberglass where it was supposed to be fiberglass. Real Clippard valves. Aluminum where it was supposed to be aluminum. And although I really wanted an aluminum gun, I wasn't above taking a shortcut when one presented itself. So when Julian offered me his old TC Gun Kit version 2, I leapt at it. Julian also threw in a lot of extra pieces, such as some aluminum knobs for the sides of the gun, even though I just bought some from GB Fans. I figure if I ever do build that aluminum thrower in a future year, I'll use those knobs too. Now, unfortunately, because of the time of the year that I was starting this, they didn't have all the tubing in stock at the same time at GB Fan Shop, so I wound up having to pay shipping like 3 different times. This was offset by the fact that I got my Clippards from GB Fan Shop for about the same amount of money that I would have paid ordering them directly from Clippard, but I didn't have to pay Clippard's handling fee. These other brass Clippard parts were all provided by Judd Hudson, and I finally got the correct small gray crank knob from GB Fan Shop. Here's a better look at the aluminum heat sink that I bought that ironically wound up not even being on the finished pack, as well as the V-hook that Julian provided. Julian also provided the cable clamp and these real brass straight Legree, as well as these resin copies of the elbow Legree, and the resin copies of the PPD, the beamline, and the filler tube, even though I later replaced these with aluminum ones. I know, it all sounds really overwhelming. Well, a year ago I didn't know what any of these terms meant either. I remember for some reason being really disappointed in this ladder booster frame when it arrived from GB Fan Shop, but after it had a coat of paint, it became one of my favorite trim pieces on the finished pack. Also, these resistors were some of the first things that I bought, and they were some of the last things put on. Another great example of things coming from diverse sources is the coupler came from Julian in New Zealand, and the yellow leg hose came from GB Fan Shop. July 18th, 2012, I finally got my nerve up to start cutting holes in things. I didn't want to lop this black piece off the bottom of the real Clippard valve, so I marked on the resin gun body where I needed to cut a hole large enough. And I notched the hole at 180-degree intervals so that I would have options of whether I wanted to put the Clippard in there diagram up or diagram down. With the Clippard in position, I could eyeball where I wanted the front knob to go. I drew a circle around it, and then I found the midpoint. So I totally forgot that I'd already bought the correct tap for this screw, and I actually threaded this thing through manually, and it made a horrific noise. So I attached the front knob, and I thought everything looked pretty good. Decided to move on to the side knob, put it in place, and trace a circle around it. Then I figured out where the midpoint was going to be. Where Julian had added some epoxy putty on the inside, I needed to actually take that out so I could drill the hole in for the threaded screw. And then I got the side knob threaded down onto it. Decided to move on to the top knob. I had a screw for this, and I didn't have a tap for it, so I put the screw in and used elbow grease. It worked, but it made me want to go out and buy correctly sized taps for everything I was going to need. Okay, at this point, let me interject a thought here, because I was using the little screw sets that GEKX sells on the GB Fan Shop for sale pages and everything. I highly recommend doing that. It's a wonderful time saver, very economical, and the way he had them organized in the little baggies with the labels on them was a fantastic boon to this project. So I couldn't figure out how to get my shell to sit flush against the motherboard. It had a couple of areas where it just wanted to gap. Julian actually had the brilliantly simple solution of saying, hey, instead of sanding each little area, make a giant sanding board out of plywood and sandpaper and sand the entire pack at the same time. So having already figured out how to do one Clippard, I decided to go ahead and cut the hole into the shell itself. I put the notches in there again so I could go either clippered up or clippered down on the labels. And as you can see, I had begun doing some sanding to the shell. There also was a little divot here that needed to be repaired. I tried sanding down this tube, but it still had some wrinkled areas that needed to be filled in, and there were the occasional pinholes from the molding. The product that I used for this was a simple plumbing epoxy putty. You mash it up, and then you start molding it into position, and after 3 minutes it cures rock hard. Once it's cured, you can sand it, you can tap it, you can do pretty much anything to it, and it's almost indistinguishable from the fiberglass. Well, as you can see, I decided to splurge and spent the extra money to get the GB1 style ribbon cable from the Ghostbusters fan shop. I also ordered the little screw packets from GEKX, and now that I had a whole bunch of different sizes of taps, I decided it was time to start drilling holes and tapping things. I had also gotten a set of the hardware for attaching the Alice frame to the motherboard from GEKX, and I drilled the hole that I needed in the Alice frame. You may notice two different color sets of markings for where I wanted to drill the holes for the cable clamp. I had them in one position, and then after I consulted this photo from the January 1985 Year in Pictures issue of Life magazine, which, by the way, I snagged off eBay for $1 and is now autographed by Ernie Hudson, I decided I didn't quite have it where I wanted it. So always remember, measure twice, cut once. Although, technically this piece, if I'd gotten in the wrong spot, it still would have been hidden underneath the cable clamp. Hey, this is a pretty good place for us to take a little break. We're right up to about the middle of August now on the creation of the Proton Pack. I'll stop this chapter and start editing the next one while I post this one. We are almost at the arrival of my aluminum parts from Speedy Metals, so stay tuned.